The Husnock are a species of hideous intelligence. Lieutenant Worf admires Gaul, and Counselor Troi has a song stuck in her head. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Seventh Rule with Cirroc Lofton.
Hello, hello.
My name is Ryan T. Husk, and today we're doing a review of Star Trek The Next Generation, Season 3, Episode 3, entitled The Survivors, written by Michael Wagner. That's a familiar name from last week. Directed by another familiar name, Les Landau. This was October 7th, 1989. Where were you? What's up, Cirroc? How are you today?
I'm good. I'm doing good. What's up, everybody? I'm Cirroc Lofton from the Seventh Rule podcast, and I'll be at STSF this year in the Bay Area, celebrating with our friends at Creation.
Okay. Cirroc's also from Star Trek Deep Space Nine. You might recognize him from that. And my name is Ryan T. Husk of the Seventh Rule. You've got to go to this convention. It's March 8th through 10th, just south of San Francisco in Burlingame, right by the airport. You're going to love it. There are already well over 20 Star Trek and sci-fi guests, tons of panels. This is March 8th through 10th. CreationEnt.com. That's CreationEnt.com to get tickets and to get your hotel. We can't wait to see you there.
Yeah, I'll be there. Ryan will be there, and we'll represent the Seventh Rule podcast
and Star Trek Deep Space Nine. Yeah. So,
just getting over the little holiday lag. That's all. It's a little slow. Sorry, guys.
I know. It's true. Everybody, please make sure if you are listening in on our audio podcast, give us a 5-star rating and a nice review. And just know that you could watch this entire episode on YouTube as well. If you're watching on YouTube, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell icon for notifications. Leave a comment and let us know what you think of The Survivors. Okay. Few things at the top. Cirroc, first of all, I remember this episode. I'm finally into the realm of the episodes I remember. I know you don't remember this episode. You've never seen any of these. But before we talk about that, the writer was Michael Wagner. If you'll recall, our buddy Melinda M. Snodgrass, who was our guest last week, mentioned that he was the showrunner for the first few episodes of season 3 and then left. So it was nice when I saw his name pop up. I was like, hey, that's the guy Melinda was talking about.
Yeah, I saw that. Then she said that because of the kind of turmoil in the episode that she wrote, that he just basically couldn't handle the job anymore and quit. So I guess we're not going to get too much more Michael Wagner episodes. So this is kind of the last little bit of what he contributed to the show. But yeah, I'm interested to get into it. And, it had a feel. It had a nice Star Trek feel to it.
Yeah. Do want to ask you, though, first and foremost, what you thought of this overall. Like, when I was about 60% of the way through it, maybe half, maybe a little more than half, I remember thinking, I'm worried that Cirroc's not going to like this one because, I'm not sure if I like this one. Like it was kind of, it was kind of slow. It was a story. Now the ending was great and it all makes sense. What it was one of these episodes that was a story more than anything. It wasn't like crazy entertaining or exciting. It was a story. It was almost like a fable. It was almost like you remember that story, like when people see a picture of these two people 15 years after watching that episode, they go, oh, I remember them, oh, that little love story. But I don't know. How are you feeling about it?
I did think it was a little slow. There were moments that I liked about it. There were elements of it that I liked, but overall, I felt the story was slow. It got me interested in the beginning, talking about the colony under attack. There's 11,000 people. I thought we were going to be seeing a situation where we go to a surface of a planet and there's one of those communities and everybody's kicking the hacky sack. And I was waiting for that moment, you know? And then it gets down to two, and then they look like they're in a house that's somewhere in Studio City in the Hollywood Hills or somewhere. It didn't, like the home itself, it didn't capture my attention in the kind of way that I was looking for, let's say. Um, it felt very, you know, at first I was like, is that the water treatment facility in the valley? Because it looked a little, the angles of the exterior kind of looked like it. But then I was like, no, this is a home. And it just was a little, it was missing the umph there because the mystery, and you know, when I watch these episodes, basically what I'm doing is it's a mystery. You know, I'm watching a mystery. I'm watching like a puzzle that needs solving, like a crossword puzzle of some sorts, you know, a visual crossword puzzle. And so you're watching it and you're trying to figure out what's going on at the same time as the crew. You're also putting yourself in the position of the different crewmen when you think about, oh, how would I handle it like this if I was given these orders, or what would I be thinking if I was the captain or the, you know, so you put yourself in different positions and you try to do the problem solving. You try to sit down and say, okay, I'll figure it out. You know, I'll figure out what Captain's got to figure out.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
in this one, it was like it was obvious to me that this story was going to hinge and revolve around this couple, and that there was a mystery that was just very underneath and easy to solve. It wasn't that mysterious, you know. It's like you see the guy with the bloody hands and the bloody clothes, and you're like, I think you killed your girlfriend, bro. It's like it's not that difficult to figure out.
No,
So
I fought this intruder, and then
yeah,
I ended
right.
up being unscathed, except for these weird nails on my claws on my back.
Yeah,
But then, yeah, it was
yeah, okay.
totally, it was,
Yeah, I believe you.
you
So
know,
it was
but
one of those kind of things.
along those lines, real quick, of where the location was, I just did a quick check. Malibu, California. It was a home in Malibu.
Okay.
Here it is. Now, obviously, this is extra added around. It looks like this kind of looks almost California-ish, but anyways, a home in Malibu, California. And also funny to see Riker doing his stunt right here, which is cool. Bring your kids to work day. That's probably maybe the inhabitants of the house. They could their thing is they get to watch. That was a fun stunt from Riker hanging upside down, right?
Yeah, no, that was fun. I enjoyed that. I like the exterior of the house.
Yeah.
It was the interior. It was the interior that I kind of thought was dated to me.
You know what? Now this is when I get my nitpick hat on and my nitpick glasses, and I say, when they walked into that house, I was like, that house is way too clean and neat and orderly and brand new. And like, it was just weird. It was like, I was like, they were walking into, you know, Malibu Barbie set. Like there wasn't, I don't know, make it
White.
look,
It
especially
was.
because
Yeah.
I'm thinking what I was thinking, and the
They
reason it
said
kind of,
nuclear apocalypse, like it
right,
was used.
exactly. The reason it jumped out to me was because I was like, well, they're the only two people left in existence as far as they know. What are they keeping the house that clean for? They're not expecting guests. Their clothes are perfect. Their rug is vacuumed. Everything's dusted. I'm like, for who? You're telling me that the two of them wouldn't start just wearing ratty clothes eventually and being like, whatever, I'll leave my jacket on the chair. Like, you know, who are you trying to impress?
Yeah. Once again, they said a nuclear holocaust, which just destroyed the entire surface of the planet, where there were no living elements, and so you would think if you survive that, the last thing you're doing is vacuuming and dusting around. Like you're scavenging for food, you're opening cans, you're like, look, you got a gas mask on. I don't know what's going on, but it's not. It's more Mad Max,
Mm,
than it is Leave It to Beaver. That's what I felt when I was in the house. It was too clean. It was too
too
dated,
beefy.
and
Yeah, but I guess the in-universe explanation, I'm sure that they could defend it by just saying, "Hey, it was all this guy's magic powers and whatever." But
yeah,
so
yeah,
they've got the in-universe excuse. But just for me, when I was watching, it was just kind of like it just kind of took me by surprise. By the way, Worf mentions it when he says one of his most famous lines ever, and when they go and visit the house, I was like, "Oh shit, that's right. This is the episode with the line." He goes, "Good tea. Nice house." It's just funny because he's just like thinking like, what do I don't know, nice house, I guess. What do people
yeah.
say? What do you want from me? But that's one of his most, that's probably top 5 Wharf lines ever right there. Some
Yeah.
people might say it's number 1, but everybody knows
Well,
good tea, nice house.
yeah, I wrote it down too. It was definitely one of my memorable moments there, and that's why I say this episode had good moments in it. I liked seeing Riker get step into the trap, and that Geordi was able to see it at the last second and said no, and he was calling it
Mhm.
out because of his riser abilities, right? So just like little things like that are consistent with the characters that they've already developed. Like, oh, Geordi would be able to see something that you wouldn't see normally with your eyes, right? Something concealed. So I thought that's consistent. They used Counselor Troy's ability of, this was her psychic ability was, I think, properly used. She was sensing things. I thought it
Right.
was properly used in this episode as well.
Right. That's something that, for all the times that I was crying saying they're not using Troi right, they're not using her special powers right, they're not using this. What I didn't think about was it could also be used as a weakness, which is a great way to use it is she's an empath. So how do you defeat an empath? Give them pain, give them stress, give them something telepathically that attacks them. That's also a good way to use that. Just kind of like with Data, his weakness is that he's not human. He doesn't understand jokes. He doesn't understand colloquialisms as much. And so that's also great to use her powers and her weaknesses. That's a great way to incorporate her into the story. And Marina
Yeah,
got to show off her acting skill. I was like, whoa, where did this come from? They actually let her
yeah,
act. Finally, it only took 50 episodes, but they're like, hey, you can act, right? Here's a scene. Check this out. Give this a shot.
yeah. That's what it felt like, and she was happy to do it. I thought she was, so yeah, there were just elements. It could have been so much better. I felt like it could have been better. And it's funny because just now, while we're talking about it, I'm looking over the notes. I'm thinking what it reminded me of when you said, what did you think of this episode? Now I remember what it reminded me of, and that's a Twilight Zone episode.
Yeah. Which one?
And there's a Twilight Zone episode where they go to visit this man who's off on a space. He's on a space colony, and he's been there for a long time. And the astronauts are there to resupply him with more stuff, and they see that he's kind of gone mad a little bit, and that's because he made a robot woman to be his significant other, and he fell in love with her, and he basically loves this robot. And the guys who were the space astronauts were trying to say, hey man, she's not real, let's, you got to come back with us, or whatever it was. I forgot the whole story exactly, but they had to destroy the robot in order for him to have a realization that this wasn't a human being that he was already in love with, because he had grown to love this robot. um, but it was interesting to me because it was basically about a man coping with uh, isolation,
Mm-hmm.
and also creating something to be his companion. I mean, even in the Castaway movie with Tom Hanks. I mean, the
Great
volleyball,
movie. Great Wilson.
right?
How do you create such a good movie with one guy?
Yeah. Well, that's what you do, and I mean, not just one guy, one fantastic, great actor who's,
It's a great script too,
you
though.
know,
But yeah,
it
definitely a
was,
great
yeah,
actor. Real
yeah.
quick, just on Castaway. Uh, I remember when I was watching it, and I was like, "Wow, this is really good." And I come to the realization that one guy is carrying this show, but this movie, in order to do that, he needs somebody to talk to. Well, you can have him talk to himself. That's been done, but for an hour, so you give him this character, Wilson. So he's talking to that person. Really, he's talking to the audience and whatever. But I remember thinking, like, I wonder what that script looks like. It's all like direction. It's all action blocks. He comes, he's making
Mhm.
fire, it's like 15 lines of making fire, stubs his thumb. And then
Yeah.
finally there's a line. There it is. Damn it. Okay. And then more blocks of it. But still we're like, so I wonder if reading it, they were just like, am I reading a book or a script, But anyway, it ended up beautifully. It's a brilliant script, I think.
Yeah, brilliant script, and it deals with a theme that I believe is somewhere late into this episode, which is when you are faced with this kind of isolation. You know, um, this was also kind of intertwined with a love story, but it also had a lot to do with isolation. He wanted to be he wanted to be alone with this illusion that he had created for himself, and because it was real enough for him. And I think that's the baseline story that I feel is also, contextually somewhere in that Twilight Zone episode, something that preceded this particular episode,
Mm-hmm.
which is that Twilight Zone episode that deals with the emotional torment of love, of isolation, and those kinds of things. So I think there's elements of that in this episode.
Yeah. Also, I think that the actor that portrayed this Dowd, Kevin, he did a phenomenal job. And I think the casting did a great job because he was supposed to play this character that really had a sadness in his eyes, a real gentleness, a real passivity, um, you know, and he played that. Like you could look in his eyes and see, even though he was a tall guy, he was the same height as Worf, so he's 6'4". He's got, kind of an imposing stature, but his eyes seemed very gentle. His eyes seemed very pacifistic. His eyes seemed sad,
Mm-hmm.
and so that was acting, but it was also great casting because I believed it. And he was, the character was somebody that went through, this unimaginable pain, as far as he perceived it. He lost everything he ever knew, including the only person he ever loved enough to just act like he was a human forever and just wanted to live out his life. And it's a beautiful love story. And what I was thinking towards the end was this felt like, because if somebody says, "What's this episode about?" you're really going to say, well, it's about this super powerful being that fell in love with this lady, so he pretended to be a human, and then the whole world got destroyed in some war. He ended up wiping out all these people, and then he recreated her to live with her together forever, in his own delusion because he misses her so much, whatever, right? Really, what you're describing is the last 2 minutes of the episode, right? You're not
Yeah,
actually so it's
yeah,
weird that the episode is not about the story. So it made me think that this felt like this was an episode where the story of these people was the idea first. And then they reverse engineered an episode about it, where they're like, what about if there was a super powerful being, and then blah, 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 blah. And then they reverse engineered an episode out of that so that they peel the layers of the onions and they reveal what it was.
hmm
That's kind of what it felt like to me.
Yeah, I'm not going to disagree with that. It definitely sounds like it could be that. There was another familiar thing to me that resonated, and that was this distress call theme of showing up. There's a distress call. These people need help, and we're going to come and show up. It's like uh, the intergalactic police department. They're like did somebody call 911? They're like, yeah. Here comes
Ghostbusters.
Picard, or something like that. Because it's like how many times I feel like I've seen this almost play out, where they're like, we're in the Denobulan system, and we found the stress call or the signs of life, or there's these conflict between two parties that need resolution. And so I did find that to be a similar kind of underlying theme. Hey, we got this call. There's colony under attack, that kind of thing, and I was excited about it because, like, oh, let's see what's going to happen. Um, yeah, it was just a little bit under. It was just anticlimactic for me that this story wasn't bigger than what it was. I would have liked some, because this could have been a Q episode.
Mm-hmm.
This could
True.
have easily.
True.
I mean, because the Dowd, what's different than the Dowd and what the Q are? What's the difference?
Right. Well, here's something I found when I was just Googling imagery for this for my background. And I just saw the picture, but it immediately made me go, oh, that's interesting. And what it is this picture. There's no explanation to it, but you get it pretty much right away. For anybody that's seen Discovery and remembers when there was I think it was season 3, and they were trying to figure out what the thing was, and it turned out it was this guy that his mom died at the end. Remember that, like the final episode, his mom is a super powerful being, and his mom died, and so he was screaming, and he was wiping out all these planets, and there was just all this crazy stuff that was going on. And that's very similar to this guy's story, just some all-powerful being that got hit with an immense loss and pain. And so billions were suffering because of it. Well, I don't remember what the phenomenon was that he was creating. I'd have to brush back up on it, but I believe it was the entire arc of season 3 of Discovery. And that was like the second or last episode.
Yeah, it was the season arc, and it was about those screams were causing dilithium crystals to, like, somehow not be around or something. So it was causing them not to be able to, fly their vehicles anymore. Federation was basically out of gas, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, the Dowd, he says that he's an immortal being of disguises and false surroundings. But that sounds like the Q to me.
Totally.
I mean, actually, it would have been a twist for me had at the end of this episode that old man turns into Q and says, "Ha got you."
Real quick, just to finish up on that Discovery thing, I just did a quick search. It was called The Burn. That's what he created. The Burn that was burning everything. And his name was Sukal. I think that was his last name. His first name was Steven. But anyway, so he was really good at fighting.
Yeah. Yeah. That burn, you don't want to get the burn. Trust me, guys.
Yeah. Anyway, so
yeah,
that's
I remember that that all powerful being who screams, and I would have liked more on the music and how the music was used as a weapon. I could have used like some kind of more explanation behind that. And we can talk about that on the other end of this break. But I do want. I felt like I was missing some things, and we're talking about some of the elements that I feel like I was missing in this episode. Um, there was some baseline great stuff, but then it felt like, oh, give me more here, give me more there.
Give
and
me
we'll talk
more.
about
What
it.
is that? Like Britney Spears, I think. Give me more.
Give me more. Give me, yeah,
Something.
something like that.
Anyway, but as Cirroc said, we're going to hop over to our break very quickly, and we'll be right back. We're going to answer all of those questions. I actually got a lot of things to discuss on this episode, which is weird because it was just kind of like a through line. It wasn't like a lot of things that happened, but it was just an interesting story. So we'll get up into it. We'll be right back on the seventh rule.